So you might know this, but I hate goal setting. Now, that sounds odd because most people love goal setting. It is that time of the year. It is that time of the year where everybody picks their New Year's resolution. It is that time of the year where everybody says, this is what I'm going to change. And honestly, my goal setting issues don't come from the new year. They come from work. Way back, probably early in my corporate career, we got assigned goals. It was almost this first introduction of SMART goals to me. It was probably like 2010, and I just hated it. I didn't dislike the idea of a SMART goal. I was like, oh, this looks really good. But the problem was life always changed. The goal I would write for the next 90 days or the next 6 months, it was always different. We'd always write these business goals to achieve something. And by the time that thing was done, it was no longer relevant because we'd already shifted, or the world had already catapulted into a different area, or the company had to focus resources into a different spot. It always felt disingenuous. There was nothing worse than even getting paid for these bonuses, even though you knew that the value to them wasn't that good. One of the places I worked, their compensation for their bonus was tied to your goals. You completed your goals, you got your bonus. But at the end of the day, they weren't connected. And it always just left this horrible taste in my mouth of not really wanting to do goals because I never really felt like they mattered. And partially is that as I reflect on it, and this has always been something I've kind of been thinking about, why do I think about this and why do I feel a certain way? It kind of had to do with, it was about person, or it was about business. It wasn't about me. And then even when you think about a personal goal, the thing with a personal goal, and that I think men also struggle with, is you have to go into a lot more darker areas. Because if you don't reach a personal goal, it's not because the company got in the way. It's because you got in the way. It's because you got in the way of yourself, whatever that might be. So whether that be a weight goal, a time goal, a vacation goal, a money goal, you are almost always the reason it didn't work out. And so those goals are even more uncomfortable. So it's just easier to set a business goal. And now some men might thrive in a business goal, but that wasn't me. And so as I evolved in my journey, this came into my life a word of the year in 2019. So I'd never heard of it before. And prior to that, I was always the New Year's resolution guy. Always said, you know what, we're going to leave everything behind. We're going to start fresh. And I was just like you. And I was going to have it all everything work out. And by the end of January, it was all going to go away. But it didn't really work out that way. It was always the same cycle of everything going on. Well, once I first heard the word of the year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And this was also in 2019, prior to me losing my job. I was really discontent with everything that I had going on in my life. I had been a stay-at-home dad for 10 days that previous summer of 2019. So I really just wanted to be dad. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to be connected to anything that was outside of work. I just wanted a chance to be dad. But yet I was still going to work every day. I was podcasting for almost a year at that time. And it was just kind of like, nothing is working. So I picked a word of the year that year, and that word was believe. And it was an interesting word to pick because what I had to believe was not Santa, not any fable outside my life, but me. I had to believe in me, and believe it not just in a lighthearted way, but really believe that I've had everything inside myself since the very beginning to do anything that I've ever wanted. It wasn't one more book. It wasn't one more podcast. It wasn't one more fill in the blank. It was believe. That I first needed to believe that I was capable of doing those things. That nothing would come into my life that I first didn't believe I deserved. Let me say that again. That nothing would come into my life that I first didn't believe I deserved. And generally, I got what I believed in, which was nothing. So, that word believe was a deep-rooted word. Now, fast forward through 2020, we don't need to rehash it too much, but some of my big moments in 2020 were, one, I lost my job in January, and I had to believe again of everything that I was meant to do. Then I get all excited about going in entrepreneurship, diving fully in to be a professional speaker, that this is my shot to make it and to make my mark in my business. Corona hits, rewires my entire life. I step into more of a belief that everything's going to work out. if I don't go get a job and I double down on being a stay-at-home dad. Fast forward through all of that. Fast forward to the fall. Both kids are in school. Taking my daughter to preschool every afternoon. Picking her up every afternoon. Wondering, can I really do this in 3 hours in a day? Meanwhile, taking care of my daughter in the morning and keeping track of everything else? I had to believe I could do it. Fast forward even further. Right before Thanksgiving of 2020, we get the email, kids going virtual till 2 weeks after New Year's. I had to believe I was capable of getting through that. My wife was still in school. I was the one keeping things going. That believe word was cemented over and over in 2020. Now, I've repeated this process at the end of 2020. And the word that I picked in 2021 was action. So 2021 was the year this podcast was started. It was born in January of 2021, took action on it in April of 2021 and launched, and now we're at 186 episodes. I took action on starting my coaching business. I've helped many dads come home to create a more connected feeling with themselves, to their kids, to their family, and even to the work that they do. Action has what defined my 2021. I did my first keynote at Stay at Home DadCon. That was something that was in motion for almost 2 years to make that moment happen. Now, fast forward again, I'm going through that same process. So we had believe, action. This year, my word is faith. Faith is something that I've lost sight of so many times. So many times have I forgotten that faith is the one thing you need to keep going with. That many of the Christmas movies this year reminded me how easy it is for kids to believe in Santa because they have faith that he's here. It shows up on Christmas morning. They don't ask how it works. They just have faith. They don't need to know if it's real or not. They just see the results. And it really cemented this idea of believing, and that believing is seeing, not seeing is believing. And this idea of where I'm going and how many times I maybe doubt that this is all worth it. But in my mind, faith is what I'm going to renew and double down on in 2022. Faith to go bigger. Faith to go bolder. Faith to make my mark in the world and say, this is who Ben Killoy is. And it's going to be a combination of believe, action, and faith. And I recently heard a great way to spell faith. That's R-I-S-K. And so it's about going all in and seeing where this goes. And going to a place that I think could change everything. So your homework to this year is to think about, as we wrap up, try not to focus on New Year's resolution. Try to focus on one word that you want to be different in your life, that you need to be reminded of many times over. Let that word be the North Star or the lighthouse when you're on the oceans of life and they get rough. Guys, have an amazing day. I'm back again with you tomorrow.